Very good. It was many years ago that I was in high school, 1968 to 1970. In Los Angeles, California, I went to a high school called John Marshall. There were about 2,000 students in the high school. 18 of them were blind. And what was very interesting about being in the high school is that we did everything that the rest of the students did. The only difference was that there was a Braille department where we could get our textbooks in Braille, where we had resource teachers who knew Braille so they could Braille examinations for the classes. My classes were a little bit challenging because I was a math major. And the resource teacher didn't always know the symbols to use to Braille the math. But at least they could describe the symbols as I took my calculus and trigonometry classes. One of my least favorite subjects was history. And yet, everything that we do in high school, everything that you do in high school, you are creating history. You're creating your own personal history, and eventually you'll do things that create history for your communities, for your country, for your neighborhoods, for your businesses. So history is very relevant. As Dr. Hartzell indicated, I want to focus on 3 words. And the reason why I want to focus on 3 is that at the time that I'll be up here, I'll be able to spit out about 3,000 words, and I don't think you'll be able to remember all 3,000. So I'll make it easy for you. Just remember 3 for me. Control, challenge, and can. Those are the 3 words that I want you to remember, and I'm going to talk to you about the 3 words as they apply to my life in high school and as I made my decisions to go past that point. I said to you that history was not one of my favorite subjects. And yet in high school, I got A's in history. Every time. Now, what's very interesting is that at some point in time in my high school life, we had to go talk to counselors about what we were going to do. All 18 of the blind students had to sit with counselors. And I sat in front of the counselor and he said, "So, Dana, what's your favorite subject?" I said, "My favorite subject is math." "And how do you do in math?" "I'm doing quite well. I get A's in math." "And which subject do you hate the most?" "I hate history." He said, "What kind of grades you get in history?" I said, "I get A's in history." He said, "Why do you work so hard in history if you hate it? Why don't you just be satisfied with a B?" And after I left the room, I said, "That man is crazy. He needs to go see a counselor. If I can get an A in history, even if I don't like it, I should get an A, because this is going to determine where I'm going to go to college, or if I can go to college. So it's important for me to put the effort in that I can. But here, the other thing that was important is that I put the effort in because of my being blind, because a lot of people thought about what blind people could not do. And other students in the high school, they seem to be satisfied with, well, if I get a C, if I make it an average, okay, it's okay. Not for me. I was never satisfied with that. And I thought it was important, here's where the control comes in, if I am going to retain control of my life and what I do after I leave high school, I'm going to have to listen to me. Counselors can give good advice, but after all, you've got to make the decision about what you're going to do. You have to be willing to retain control. Now, when I was in high school, I made this decision. Well, I was thinking I was going to go to UCLA. UCLA was not a bad university to go to. And many of the students in my high school were thinking about going to UCLA. But someone planted an idea in my head about possibly going somewhere else. They said, how about going to Yale? Or Princeton? Or Purdue? Or MIT, Massachusetts Institute of Technology. I had no idea where those schools were. But I decided, after talking to some friends, maybe I'll go to Yale. But I knew that I would need the help of the Department of Rehabilitation. That was a department that provided equipment and other assistance for students who were blind. So I made an appointment to see, guess what? Another counselor. And I said to the counselor, I want to go to Yale. That's where I've applied, and I want to go to Yale. And the counselor said, Yale is outside the state. We can't support you out of the state. Our funding comes from the state, and you have to go to a school inside the state. We've had great success in sending kids to a training school where they learn to be computer programmers. Well, I'll tell you, young men, young ladies, today if someone said something to you about being a computer programmer, you might think that's an interesting idea. But we're talking back in 1968. I had no idea what a computer was. And they wanted me to be a computer programmer. I don't think so. But the counselor insisted that they couldn't help me in going to Yale, which is where I wanted to go. And I tried to think of how I could do it even though they say they can't help me. So the counselor, I said, is there no way that I could go to Yale and you help me out with buying my Braille equipment and paying for a reader to help me? And she said, well, if you were taking a course outside of California that's not offered inside of California, we'd let you go and we would pay for it. Well, I was going to be a math major. I was sure that they offered math courses inside of California, so that wasn't going to work. I said, well, what if I get a scholarship outside of California, not inside California? They said, I think that'll work. I said, all right, then, write that down. She said, write that down? I said, yes. She said, write what down? I said, I have a scholarship outside California. I don't have one inside. She wrote that down. That became the justification, and they did help me when I went to college. I had a scholarship to Yale. I had a scholarship to MIT, to Princeton, Columbia. I could choose whatever school I want. I didn't tell them that I also had a scholarship to Stanford, which was inside California. I figure what they don't know can't hurt them, right? It's important that you know what it is that you want and you retain the control. It's important that you get advice from other people. There are times when you'll need assistance from other people, but never let anyone else control the history that you're making for yourselves. Control is the first.